Thank you very much, Irene Muchuma, back at Broadcasting House. We're at Rwanda, and this is at the Consulate of the Republic of Cameroon. Because World Cup, KBC, Cameroon are going to be playing on Thursday. That's going to be their opening game against Switzerland. That match is going to be broadcast live on KBC Channel 1. And together with the Consulate of Cameroon, KBC has partnered, and there's going to be a public viewing of the guests of the Consulate of the Republic of Cameroon. And we've got the Minister Plenipotentiary, Dr.Vivian Nain, with us in her office. And thank you very much, Dr. Nain. And let's start with this: the Cameroon qualifying this year for the World Cup. I know if Cameroon misses the World Cup, it comes close to a national crisis.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Daniel. I want to also thank KBC for partnering with Cameroon, and we don't take it for granted. We are so delighted and honored to have been approached by you for this partnership. And you rightly said, Cameroon, you saw the qualifying match between Cameroon and Nigeria. It was, it would have been a national crisis if we lost that match, because there is something in football that binds Cameroonians together. We might have our differences, but when it comes to football, that's a unifying factor. And we actually prayed that the Lions make it through, and they did. So we are very happy to be now in Qatar. Yeah.
Well, and I can say it's been quite some eventful time for Cameroon, especially sporting-wise, having hosted the Africa Cup of Nations. A different team did win, but there seems to be that buzz that's coming back to the lines of late. Just tell us about how that tournament brought back the buzz.
Yeah, the AFCON 2021 was long expected, because Cameroon last hosted the AFCON in 1972. That was decades ago.
Kenya was in that AFCON.
Yeah, so we've been working towards it. We needed a stadium, and all that was put in place timely. And we had our AFCON, which actually boosts the morality of Cameroonians, because for long Cameroonians were not very happy that they're a very big football nation and they are not hosted in modern times. So the AFCON was really a welcome event for Cameroon, and it also brought some kind of ambiance within the football family of Cameroon. Not only the national team, but also the elite one teams that constitute the playing leagues in Cameroon. So it was a time for people to showcase their knowledge, and for the youngsters to also be promoted, maybe picked in the national team also. So it was a very good moment for Cameroon, and I think we sailed through it quite well.
Well, the story of Cameroon becoming the first African team to win a match was Tunisia way back in 78, but in 82 Cameroon had that huge impact on the game, and continuously appearing, culminating in that quarterfinal place in 1990. What was the vibe then in Cameroon, with Francois Omambi, Emmanuel Koundé, Songo, that generation of players making history?
Yeah, it does not just make history, it still makes history even now. Because most of the time, the modern footballers are compared to that era of Roger Milla, Omambi, Kono. Kono was the goalkeeper at the time. And these are people who went into football for the love of the game. Now football also is a business, it's a game, it's a profession. But they didn't go in as professionals. You see, there were local players that loved the game and projected the image of Cameroon through their coming together. And as you said, from when they had the first AFCON to when they started in the World Cup, it has always been fun. And especially in the 1990, that was the apex of the game. Because not only did they beat Argentina in the opening match, they went to the quarterfinals, which was the first ever for an African country to attain. And we have always leveraged our football at that level. So even after the different generations, we'll still have that as the peak. So we keep looking forward to getting back to that level, and why not go beyond it to get the cup?
Well, let me talk about something that happened 10 years later.
Yeah.
Patrick Mboma, Idris Kameni, that generation of players going on to win that Olympic gold.
Yeah.
When you look at the medal tables to do with Cameroon, that is the one that stands out.
Yeah.
What was then with that generation that later went on to win two back-to-back AFCONs.
You know, that was a transitional generation from the Roger Millers to the Patrick Mboma, Etofis, Rigobert Song. That was a team, the Olympic team 2000. So that was a young generation that had to prove its worth. I even saw the way they won that match during the Olympic Games. It was not an easy match. They went to penalties, and they had to prove themselves to be maintained in the national team. It's a team where every now and then new players come in. So for you to maintain your position as a professional player with the national team, you have to give your best. And I think they did. They gave their best for that match.
Now, 22 years later in Qatar, you've got people from that generation who are now all around the team. Rigobert Song is the national team coach. Samuel Eto'o is the FA president. I think Roger Miller, always in an ambassadorial role. How are this rubbing off again, on these young players?
I think it gives them the confidence that they can rely on people who were there yesterday for their advice. And now in Qatar, you still have some people, it's a mix. Because you have people like Vincent Aboubakar, who is the captain of the team, who also played with Rigobert Song and Etofis. So he is still there to maintain, that kind of serenity that was when he was playing with Samuel Eto'o and Patrick Mboma. And these people, you say, they are surrounding them. So they still benefit from their presence, their experience, and their expertise. So I think, the match is always 90 minutes. So if they perform in one way during the first half, they have the 15 minutes to benefit from the coaching and the review of the tactics of the Lion during the break. So I think they stand to still gain a lot from those people surrounding them. And as you rightly said, Roger Miller is always there. He's the roving ambassador, and he's our biggest legend. So keep encouraging the Lions once more.
Well, interesting that former Harambee Stars coach Sebastian Minyi is the assistant to Rigobert Song. So we know that if Cameroon plays Kenya again, there are two familiar faces on the technical bench.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Cameroon's opening game and the Consulate of Cameroon, the public viewing event. Just give us, a sneak peek of what everyone should expect.
You expect a lot of fun. We are football lovers. We're a country of football lovers. As I said, football is unity. And you will look forward to a very exciting crowd of Cameroonians here in Kenya. I've also had the pleasure of inviting some ambassadors and heads of mission from the African Diplomatic Corps in Nairobi. So we are going to have a huge crowd, and we are looking forward to having a lot of fun. You see the ambience, the Cameroonian way, and I think it rubs off on the Harambee. Yeah.
Well, and when you talk about the fun and the ambience, when it comes to culture, I think your biggest cultural icon here is Sam Thomas.
Yes, Sam Thomas, and I have a story. I have a Kenyan friend who to me is like a sister. She once told me Sam Thomas was Kenyan. Because of his repetitive presence in Kenya, he has grown to be a household name in Kenya. And we really appreciate that bond between Cameroon and Kenya. And I think it's an opportunity we could leverage on that to bring our cultures together, have a cultural show of Cameroon and Kenya. I think that would be good for African unity.
Oh, okay. And, now let's talk about the two countries. Is somebody visiting Cameroon? What are some of the things that could benefit from? And somebody from Cameroon coming to Kenya, things they could benefit from?
Yes, it depends in what category or what domain you are visiting Cameroon. Are you going as a tourist or as a business partner, or it all depends. And we have all those. If it's a partnership, we are here to facilitate for people who are going for partnership. Of recent, I've seen so many Kenyans going to Cameroon to impart knowledge, especially in the ICTs. So many. Others go for church reasons, and then others are developers looking for partners to develop real estate in Cameroon. So there's that partnership that is growing by the day. And also we have the Kenya Airways that flies Cameroon, which has been of great service to us, although its service to Cameroon has been stepped down. I don't really know, maybe because of COVID, but we think that it's a trying moment, and we expect and we really hope that Kenya Airways steps back, brings back its service to Yaoundé, because you only go to Nairobi, Douala, and back. But there is a lot of there are so many tourists in Yaoundé willing to travel to Kenya. So once in a while, I receive calls from people, apart from Kenya Airways, which other airline do you want to, which other airline can I take? So you have Rwandair, you have Ethiopian, but the ideal would have been Kenya Airways, flying these two cities.
Oh.
So there's a lot we can do together. We have a lot of timber. You can import timber from Cameroon. Instead of us exporting it all to Europe, we can import timber from Cameroon. We can export tea to Cameroon. I'm aware that 2 weeks ago, some Kenyan tea was flagged off to Ghana. Can only also be done in Cameroon. We have tea, but variety also is the spice of life. So okay, we could go that way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vivian Nain. She's the Minister Plenipotentiary at the Consulate of Cameroon here in Kenya. And remember, it's a public viewing event on Thursday, Cameroon against Switzerland, and it's going to be live on KBC Channel 1. World Cup, Eco KBC. My name is Daniel Wahome. Back to you, Irene Muchuma at Broadcasting House.